Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where I interview educators and entrepreneurs on leveling up. Each episode, I zoom in someone who's dope, and we just sit back and have a conversation on what it means to live your best life. Now, if this is your first time checking out the podcast, this is the Mobile University for Entrepreneurs, and I'm your host, Dr. Will. Today's guest is Dr. Sandra. Did I say Sandra? Sandra.
Whatever.
All right, then I say Sandra Colton Medici.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be talking about how she became an entrepreneur, how she went from entertainment to education. We're going to talk about her company and the work that she is doing in helping entrepreneurs to develop online courses, live virtual events, webinars, membership sites. Which I'm excited about the membership site because people, think about it. Netflix is charging people just a nominal fee. They're making all that change. I'm thinking what happens to the average person who can do the same. So we're going to have her talk about all of those things and get you more excited about the work that you're doing and get you some answers how you can make more coin to make the impact and the income. For those who'll be listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, and Spotify, and Audible. Can't forget Audible. Will you please introduce yourself, Dr. Sandra?
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Will, for having me on the show. I'm so excited to, you know, impart whatever knowledge that can be taken from this, and hopefully you can take that and implement it into whatever either educational platform you are creating or business you are, working to evolve. I think that a lot of times when we are listening to podcasts, we're listening for those nuggets of nowness, and I'm hoping that I can provide some for you today.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm always curious as to how people got to where they are. What did you think you would be doing when you were growing up, and what drew you to entrepreneurship?
Well, so that's a loaded question. So it's a long time coming. I've always been interested in business, but when I was growing up, my sister and I were performing since I can remember. I'm my first tap dancing class was at like age 3 or something like this. So when we were growing up, we were performing as a sister act and as a duo. We also were part of a performance troupe called Pizzazz. Yes, it had like 4 Z's in it. But we were in Northern California doing this, and we excelled at it, and we ended up being on Star Search when I was a teenager. And so it gave me a little bit of a different perspective of utilizing your talent to make money, because we won the teen dance championship. So we got, I don't know, it was like $10,000, and we bought furniture for our whole house, and we thought we were so cool. And we were on TV. So it was like a little bit of a like dipping your toe into entertainment. From there, I was really excited because I just continued that. I went to high school in Vegas, and which is a whole bunch of, city lights, which are very attractive. And we opened up on the Las Vegas Strip for Lou Rawls, Bill Cosby, a lot of people who at the time were like in their heyday. And for us, it was really something that kind of separated us from, regular teenager life. But it wasn't the end all be all. So for me, I ended up going to college, and coming back after school and kind of like not really knowing like what I was going to do. When I went to school, I didn't study entertainment. I studied sociology. I wanted to know how people thought and how people communicated and how communities interacted. And I was really interested in that, so much so that I thought maybe I would teach in college. And so when I thought about teaching, I never thought I would teach little kids. I was never I never really wanted to teach 3 and 5-year-olds how to dance. I always, which is funny because I ended up doing that one time, but I really thought I was more of a collegiate professor. Like that's what I wanted to do. I was very much into journalism, and I thought that that's where it was going to take me. So long story short, I ended up getting myself back to LA, became a Laker girl, toured with Rihanna, did a lot of stuff in entertainment. But along the way, I wanted to help other people basically shortcut their way to professional dance. And in order to do that, I wrote a book called Book Me How to Become a Successful Working Dancer in Hollywood. And it's on Amazon if you really want to get it. But I was trying to shortcut the way for people who were outside of LA and wanted to come and make it in Hollywood as a professional dancer. And so that was kind of my like first real instructional product that I was creating for people. This was back in 2009. And when I did that, I really felt like I was helping people. I was really giving people the goods. Like, if you want to make it, you need an agent. If you want to do this, you should wear this. If you want to audition and book the job, you should do this. Like, I was giving people the tea, of really getting their best foot forward for them and shortcutting a lot of things that would set them back if they wanted to do that in Hollywood. And for me, it was really gratifying. Like, I felt like I was doing something good. I was getting paid for it at the same time, with my book. And, I did a book tour and I felt like, yeah, this could be good. And so I then ended up creating a magazine. And so it kind of combined my undergrad. I did my minor was in communication studies. And so I was able to connect the journalism side of things that I really like to do, which was, write, with the entertainment side of things, which is, photo shoots and fashion and, all of those things, into a magazine. And I published that for about 5 years. It was called Dance Track Magazine. And it really focused on the commercial side of professional dancing, which a lot of different publications in the performing arts sphere that focused on dance were really on the, I would say, the studio side and not the commercial side. So when I was doing the magazine, So You Think You Can Dance was on, Dancing with the Stars, all of the big kind of dance shows, competition shows were really booming. And so we were focusing on all of these different people who were people first versus performer first. And we were showcasing all of their other sides of what they could do. So I had kind of that like journalist entertainment combination with business mode with my magazine that ended up getting featured on Dance Moms, which is the Lifetime TV show. And so we did a huge photo shoot with them. And so it kind of went from, hey, I'm performing kind of on a small stage with this performance troupe, to big stages on, Star Search, to with Ed McMahon. Like, this was like way back in the day. This was not like the rerun of like with, I think there was like not Sinbad, it was a different host. But anyways, moving from that to Laker Girls and, all these different things, and to, being on a much larger stage, showcasing other people's work. And so for me, I was like, wow, this is cool. I'm a business person. I can, combine entertainment and journalism. And so I'm teaching and helping at the same time as I'm, generating buzz for this product, to say. And so I think that kind of wheels got turning in my head for how I could parlay that into something else. Now, along the way, I got married and had kids. So, different things happened, but I went back to school, not once, but twice. I'm sure, like yourself, got my master's from USC and got my doctorate from USC as well. And I really thought about what I wanted to do with my life in those particular decisions of going back to school. And that really was the pivot. And a lot of people do have that pivot of, I'm known for one thing, and now I want to be known for something else. And so when I went back to school, I went back for my master's is in communication management. And then my doctorate is in organizational change and leadership. And I studied e-commerce marketing strategies. So for me, I was trying to, a lot of people think, oh, sorry, there's a noise in the background. A lot of people think that you go back to school and like, hey, what are you, a professor of dance? And I'm like, no. I'm so not a professor of dance. Like, I don't need a degree to do that. I have 30, years of entertainment experience, and I can go teach dance in a dance studio because I've lived that life. But for me, it was like, I need to pivot because my interests, just like everybody else's, they evolve, right? It really didn't change from, hey, I want to teach people something. It's just now I know what I want to teach and how to teach it better because I went back to school to learn how people learn and how to deliver the content. And I know that's a very long-winded answer to what you were asking, but that's really how it came about.
Hey, that's awesome. I love hearing the journey. I mean, I got into education. I didn't have your success, but I went to film school because I wanted to make movies and graduated from film school. And then, I'm just like, okay, what am I going to do? And the cliche idea came to me was, okay, just get a job and write a script.
Right.
Got a job, but the script never got written, but I got the bug for education. And I then got a job to work with youth with a college and career mentoring program that I ran. And from that, I was just like really like, wow, this is awesome. I'm making this impact and I'm loving it. And that just steered me towards something different. Now, a couple of years ago, I did put out a documentary, so I got to put the film school practice to use, that degree to use. But it was just me going, which is interesting because at first I was like, every now and then I would go, like right now, I'm like, okay, the film degree is hanging right there. But I was like, well, I just never went there. I never went there. But this is where I need to be, where I am called to be, and my interests. So I still love films. I was watching, Ted Lasso for the first time ever before I even got on this interview. So I was with the wife checking that out. But it's still very much part of my life. I really enjoy movies and TV and all those things, and love media. And inshallah, my podcast will grow to something different. Whatever, maybe I get to travel the world interviewing people one day. That'll be definitely on the top of my list. But I enjoyed hearing about that journey of I did these things, and as my interest changed, I leaned into them. I didn't fight them. I didn't question them. I went forward and learned what I needed to learn in order to be where I am now. So it was awesome to hear about that. So as an entrepreneur, you are the founder and CEO of College of Style. What drew you to this online space? Now, I know the pandemic made a lot of folk go online because they ain't have a choice, right? But you were online. And what was sort of that inspiration, that pain point, that calling that made you create the company?
Well, so the name College of Style I had created when I was actually an admissions advisor for FITM a long time ago. I don't know if you know what FITM is, but it's a fashion school, a design school in LA, and it was featured on MTV, and that's pretty much how it got super well known. But I would do admissions for the school, and I was around a whole bunch of fashionable students all the time. And they would be walking the halls. Even when I was giving tours of the facility, I was like, gosh, all of these students are coming in and they're so stylish. And I had always been driven, or I'd always been really interested in fashion. And I had actually had a fashion blog called Love Sandra at a time. I went to London and studied at Condé Nast College of Fashion and Design for 3 months and got a fashion journalism certificate from them. So that was one of my loves that I kind of had in my back pocket. And so when I was working at FITM, I was like, I should do something. And I thought of, let me create something called College of Style. And I never did anything with it. I just, took the Instagram name and did nothing, right? Come a few years later, I had let the website expire and someone else had taken it, right? And done nothing with it too. And when we were thinking about, what should I do during the pandemic, right? Because everybody was at home, like you said. I had actually had my daughter in October of 2019, gone back to work in March of 2020, was there for about 2 weeks. They sent everyone home. So I was in the middle of bonding time anyways with my new little girl. So a lot of the pandemic, I was in that like bonding period. So it kind of worked out for me. I know a lot of people have suffered through the pandemic, but for us, we were like, this is great. We're all home. Like it was going to be tough for us to both be at work and this to have, good time with our little girl. And I have a 4-year-old as well. So we're like, now we're all at home. And I started my podcast during the early stages of the pandemic. And that one it's called Sweet Bites with Sandra, and it's really focused on digital marketing. But after I started that, I was like, you know what, maybe I should go a little further here and do something with that College of Style thing that I had come up with in 2017. And I went online, I went to GoDaddy, like many people do, to like figure out like, what's the name of your business? And it was up for sale. And I was like, yes, I was like, this is a sign, right? That I can get the name back on the URL. I already had the Instagram, I already had the Twitter. And when all of those things align, you're just like, it must be a sign. So I started it because I knew I had all of the right pieces. It's now trademarked, so I'm not worried about that part. And I have the Pinterest and I have all of the things, right? So when I went in to lean into College of Style, I didn't want it to be known as just fashion, because I wanted it to be more about helping women, specifically female entrepreneurs, grow their businesses through different events that we would have, whether it's workshops or tutorials or trainings or, what are all of those things, and create programs for people to purchase or, buy templates to help them, shortcut their way to getting better social media. And I wanted it to be really focused around helping female entrepreneurs get better in what they were doing, through what I called the 5 style pillars. And I really wanted to redefine what it meant to be a style icon. And a lot of times people think of style icons as fashion designers or models. And I wanted it to be about teaching style, leadership style, personal style, lifestyle, and communication style. So that when you think of style, you're not just immediately associating it with fashion. I wanted, if someone was an amazing orator, like a Barack Obama or a Michelle Obama, you could say, wow, she's a style icon because she's an amazing communicator. Her communication style is what I'm drawn to. And so I wanted to have those be a redefining moment in this moment of female empowerment that we're all kind of experiencing. The Me Too movement has kind of led into, let's get more people elected into office, that are female. Recognizing transgender, part of our population, all of these things that I think are really powerful moments that we have right now, and really getting the group of women that are entrepreneurs to get to the next place in their business. And so part of that was the podcast. And the other was the redefining moment of building this business of College of Style to say anyone can be a style icon if you're willing to grow into your expertise and develop it so much that you become that style icon. So that's where it came from. And, I'm still growing it as we're speaking.
So in the work that you are doing, and I went to that website, and the other website actually named for you or uses your name as a URL, right?
Uh-huh.
We had a conversation beforehand, before we started recording, where, I was mentioning that a lot of people we see online, they have businesses where they say, hey, I will teach you how to create a online course to teach your knowledge and all of those things. I even saw one where someone said, I can teach you how to deliver a course in a day. And I hope no one ever buys anything from this individual, because a day, never. But as an educator, what do you think that you do differently when you're working with entrepreneurs on how to design courses and market and sell them versus someone who does not have that background that you and I do, or people who are listening to this podcast have?
Well, I don't know about everybody who's listening, but I do know that when I teach course creation, mine comes from a curriculum design perspective. And so when you're looking at what your outcomes need to be, I work backwards, right? A lot of times people have this framework of like, I'll show you how to teach, or how I'll show you how to create a course. You just need a name. You just need, decide if it's going to be a spotlight course or this course or whatever. And I'm like, well, you need to know how you're going to teach. You need to know the difference. And so for me, I think that I start with the learning design of knowing that students learn differently. And so you need to map your course not just for one student, but to make sure that all students, whether they're audio or visual or kinesthetic, like how people learn. And then when you're building out your actual modules, that you need to work backwards from what your outcomes are, that you need to use different terminology to make sure that you're communicating the actions and the steps that they need to take in order to actually accomplish the goals that you're setting out for them. And so for me, I definitely come from a curriculum design perspective versus a just get it done and put it out there perspective. I think that it's really important that people learn what you're trying to teach them instead of just say, hey, you bought the course, you're one of my students, because that doesn't necessarily make you a student, it makes you a customer, right? If you are making sure that people have the right steps in line and that they are measurable outcomes, right? So that you can say, if you do this, you should be able to this at the end, and that will build on one another to make sure that you have what you need at the end, then that makes a lot of sense to me. It doesn't make a lot of sense to say, here's your course, and I hope you, somebody said this to me, I love your hair, I hope you win. like just because you have great hair doesn't mean you're going to win the pageant, right? And so I think that even if you are selling a course that you don't necessarily have a lot of contact with the student, it makes way more sense that if you did have an option, for communication, that option is there, or you do have the step-by-step process going through, so that people, if they're stuck, they're not stuck because you didn't teach it to them. It's because maybe it's something in the process of maybe their idea is not on point and they need to rework that, right? Versus you're not providing them the actual steps to get to their goal. So I think from that perspective, I am much more of a student-centered teacher than I am just a professor just speaking to an auditorium and just monologuing. I think that that's my style. When I did a course creation challenge in, was it June? Which was very much hands-on. It was all live. People did have the advantage of having a replay, but for me, I like the live interaction where I can answer questions in real time if somebody's not getting it, and I shouldn't say getting it, just not at the same speed of how I'm talking or delivering it, right? Because a lot of times when people get into situations, I know that it's very easy to deliver an online course, right? And sometimes people take online courses because they're online and they're easy to download and just do at your own pace. And there's the asynchronous and the synchronous and all of those different, there's the hybrid, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But some people do take them because I just want to do it at my own pace. I don't want any kind of interaction or any interference from somebody trying to look over my shoulder. I get that. And then there's people who need that, right? They need the motivation and the encouragement and like the hand holding and all of that. So you have to come from a place of inclusivity when you're creating a course, because not everybody learns the same and not everybody needs the same kind of attention. And I know that sounds like, God, that's a lot to build into a course, but it's what you should be doing if you're going to deliver a course online, specifically where you don't have the in-person way of reading a room to say, let me step back, let me redo that point one more time, on the chalkboard, if it's a math problem or whatever, if you don't have that kind of moment to reflect and say, hey, I can see Sally's not doing, A, B, and C correctly, or I can see that Bobby needs more help, or I can see the glaze over people's eyes because it's not going through, right? You don't have that. And so the check-in is really having to include all of that stuff inside of your digital course, whatever that might be. And that might be the aspect of having office hours or having some sort of support email where people can get help, or making sure that your course is available not just for 10 days, but for the lifetime of however long your business is open, so that people can continuously revisit if they need to. So I know that's a long-winded answer as well, but I think that for me, it's definitely a student-centered approach with making sure that everything is in all the whole kit and caboodle, so that you're tackling every single learning style when you're creating your course.
For those, if you're an educator, you are familiar with what Doc has been talking about, scaffolding and providing support, which if you're not an educator, you may not know these terms. And so it is very bad for you to just, roll out a course and hand it to people as though it is a guide and like an instructional manual. I'm going to leave it at there because I don't want to get on my high horse, but that's one of those things for me. It gets to me because like some of these people, they're charging like super duper money, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Because again, as an educator, my first thing is about transformation. And if you are the same person after you have finished my course, then I did not do my job, and I have to be able to have that some sort of contact with you, whether that is as you're going through this, you're going to be maybe submitting pieces of your courses for my review, or we're going to do a webinar where I can kind of review some things and answer questions, or as you mentioned earlier, some sort of email support. Something needs to happen so that when you feel supported, but when you're done, you're ready and you're confident to move forward with designing and delivering your course, and not just do what was done to you of, okay, now I'm just going to put all this stuff in there and there you go. There's a lot of bad stuff out there. So I'm glad the breakdown was just masterful. And so I'm hoping that again, other educators, when you hear this and you get it and you're getting into this game, make sure you actually use what you do, right? Lean into those strengths of what we do every day as educators. Now, I want to talk to you about the reason to create an online business, right? Because we're looking at a lot of platforms, Udemy and Udacity, and then you have Thinkific and Teachable and Kajabi and other learning management systems where you can go and create courses that are a part of your online business. But as we're seeing, and this is what I love about this online space, I live in Mississippi. There are people who know me all over the country, around the world, because of this internet. I've been given consulting jobs because people know me online. How important is it when people are thinking about either becoming an entrepreneur, or maybe they're a current entrepreneur and they're not really into that online game right now? They're still sort of brick and mortar, so to speak. How important is it for them to get online with their business?
I think that having an online presence is only going to benefit you. And that is to say that if you can, even if it's a LinkedIn profile on something that is, a platform that's more business oriented than social, I would say get one. And the reason I would say that is because we are all digital. And I was talking with a woman by the name of Reggie Casagrande, and she works with a lot of high profile businesses like, sneaker companies and things like that. And she was talking about the digital acceleration and how during 2020 specifically, there was like 1,000%, 8,000% digital acceleration from how people used to live to how people live now. And that's everything from what you used to maybe go and, get drive-through fast food, but now a lot of people are getting their groceries delivered, right? Versus, maybe a handful were doing that before, like not, more people who could afford that kind of service. And now it's much more affordable. People who are buying Pelotons, to be in their house instead of getting a subscription to a gym. Now they're subscribing to different things online to do their workouts at home. So that whole digital acceleration changed the game, and it's not going to go back, is one of the things that people need to understand, is that it's not reversing itself. It will just continue. And that's why Google, or not Google, Amazon, cut their ad spend, because they don't need any anymore, because people went straight to Amazon to get everything that they needed, so they didn't have to go outside. And what will happen, just like, baseball games and football games have been, streaming online, and a lot of people haven't been going to the stands because of COVID and all of the restrictions, is some people really like that more, and they won't go back to the stands because they kind of like having parties at their house, right? So having that internet connection, whether it's a strong one that's fast or just one that's going to get you by on a day-to-day basis, is important. And having an online presence for people that are never going to see you in person is even more important, because there's an entire part of the population who will not go out as much as they used to, even when things go back to what we assume is considered normal. And for those people, you will need to be able to reach them in some manner. And it's not going to be on a billboard, and it's not going to be on a bus sign. It's going to be on Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and LinkedIn and TikTok and all of the social media platforms that are technically free to have an account. And so you can have that organic reach without actually paying for it if you're doing it right. And so what I would say is, don't neglect part of the population that is consuming all of this entertainment, inspiration, education online, because you're kind of, it's almost like, if you're not using the alt text on your images, well, you're ignoring people who don't see or hear very well, because that is part of how they're getting their communication from social media, is through the alt text for the descriptions of the pictures, right? So if you're not doing that, you're taking an entire segment of the buying population out of your equation, that you could be selling to, right? So if you are not online, you are definitely ignoring the majority of the population. And I'm not saying if you're not on Facebook, because there's tons of people who aren't on Facebook. I'm talking about just in general, being online, being searchable, having your website searchable in Google. That is very important, because you don't necessarily have to be on social media to have a web presence. And so what I would say is, get one, even if it's just a one-page website, or just a link tree, right? Something that, you can get a link tree one page, and it sends people to send you an email, right? Just something that gives you the opportunity, gives you an option, I would say, gives you the option for people to get in touch with you online versus not, because then, you neglect more than half the population that is online. And you can build those relationships over time. And I know that a lot of times, especially with education, it's about word of mouth, oh, my dad went to this school, so I'm going to go to this school. That kind of thing lives because people have Yelp, right? People do still review businesses. And even if it's just you getting a review from someone that you've worked with and a customer puts it on Yelp, well, that's more than if you didn't have it on Yelp.
So in addition to teaching entrepreneurs how to design online courses, you also work with them in how to develop workshops and virtual conferences. Give us a view, right? Lift the curtain, if you will, on your process of doing so.
So if someone is working on developing a workshop, similar to creating a course, I know that when we were doing some course creation challenges, people weren't necessarily creating a course that they were going to sell online because they were in the fitness industry. So they were creating a workshop because they were teaching other dancers and yoga instructors how to be instructors. And so it was more of a workshop that they wanted to create. For me, the lifting of the curtain is that you need to be an expert in what you're teaching. And so a lot of times people try to teach what they don't know. And that's harder to develop a workshop if you don't know the material, right? So I always advise people, if you want to teach something, if you want to, if it's a workshop or a webinar or, put together a conference, then you need to learn the material and know it cold, not on like a piece of paper, but like from memory, so that you can be confident when you show up to whatever it is that you're teaching. And that's the same for virtual conferences and things like that. If you don't know the material, then you need to go out and find the experts that do, right? And that's where building out your audiences can benefit from having multiple speakers in a conference than just one speaker, right? And so you can always benefit from having a much bigger reach if you have more people on a bill. Same thing as if you're going to a concert where you've got like 20 different people at a festival, you're going to get a lot more concert goers than if you just had one person. Now, you might get a ton of people if it's just Beyonce, but that's far and few between. But you want to make sure that, when you're going behind the scenes of a virtual conference or a summit, or we just did a symposium, right? Where you're actually seeking out the expertise that you intend to impart on your audience. If you don't have it yourself, you need to find it, and you need to pay whatever speakers fees that are involved or whatever that is. But I definitely think that when you're developing the workshop, the webinar, the conference, summit, symposium, all of those things have a lot of commonalities. And that is, you have to know the material in order to plan it. The behind the scenes of funnels and sales and marketing and all of that really just has to do with nurturing your audience and making sure that what you're teaching is what they want. It's what you have to make sure that what you're setting up, the event, has to be something that is in demand, right? You have to be filling a void. You have to be providing the transformation. You have to be creating something that people really want, right? You can go to Google and just search and see, are people searching for this? You can go to Pinterest and see, like, are people searching for this? You can, I think there's one called Ask the Public, or you can look for where people are searching for the most topics to validate, beyond doing a survey or some sort of other study, to make sure that you are providing the transformation that they want. The technical aspects of all of the, actually putting it together really just come down to timing, making sure that you're providing people with enough time to, sign up and purchase tickets, making sure that you're providing them with a schedule that makes sense. A lot of people want something that they can take away with them, especially in something digital. They want something that they can take away as a memento, right? So that could either be the conference summary. You could provide them with an audio version of, what you're producing. You can provide them with videos. I know a lot of people do some sort of upselling. If you want the video afterward, you can do that. And also not forgetting to give people the opportunity to sign up for the next one. And I think that that's something that's a lot of the time left on the table, is you had your event and it was really successful, but you forgot to ask them the biggest question of them all, which is, sign up now for next time, right? Because you want people to stay interested so that you can continue to build that relationship. And I think a lot of people leave that on the table, and they leave it to, 6 months down the road. And then they say, oh, hey, by the way, we're having our next one. Are you interested? And they're like, yeah, I've moved on. So building workshops is similar to courses in that you must be a subject matter expert. And if you are not a subject matter expert, you need to go out and find one or two or three or four to make sure that whatever event that you're having, the bill has to make sense, right? The people on the stage have to draw in your audience. You don't want, 5 people who don't know what they're talking about to be on the bill, and then people walk away and they say, I didn't learn anything, right? You want people to be on that stage, whether it's virtual or in real life, to say, wow, that was an amazing conference. I want to be a speaker at that conference. Or I want to be able to go next year, but next year I'm going to buy the VIP ticket because I want to ask questions, or whatever it might be, so that that you're solidifying that event as the premier event in whatever industry you're in.
So you just mentioned upsell, and you mentioned the ask, and you mentioned the what next. And what I've seen, a lot of people do that by offering a webinar. And I'm interested in knowing what makes a webinar a good webinar, especially since of the past 2 years. So many of us have spent so much time on Zoom and may not necessarily be in the mood to just hop on another Zoom. So what, in light of that, what makes a webinar a good webinar?
So I would say that there's a webinar framework that I think has circulated and is dead. And that is the one that comes in where people spend about 30 minutes talking about themselves and why they're qualified for what they do. And then they spend about the next 20 to 30 minutes telling you, well, I should say maybe 10 minutes giving you examples and testimonials. And then the follow-up is, hey, you should really hop on this product, right? And this is the limited amount of time that you have to buy it. That I think is dead. And the reason I think it is because people have seen it over the last 2 years and they've gotten hip to what is coming. So people typically will sign up for a webinar, miss the webinar completely, go to the replay, skip to the end, and see, okay, this is how much the product is, right? Because they really just want to know, like, what am I, because they know that they're not going to be getting the full Monty, right? They're not going to be getting what the webinar promises, which is, I will teach you how to do this in 30 minutes or 60 minutes. They're probably only going to get scrapes, little breadcrumbs of what what the person's promising. And then they really just want to get to the end to see, okay, well, how much is the full program? Because I'll probably get what I need in the full program. What I think is the better way to do it now is to replace the I with you. And that means that if you are talking directly to your audience and using the word you more often than I, like, I am an expert in da 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 da. People know you are, or else they wouldn't be going to your webinar, right? If you are the focus of the actual webinar and the engagement is high, meaning asking questions during the webinar, telling me in the comments where you're from, why are you here, what can I help with, where are you stuck, how I can help you in real time while we're here to get stuff done, then people get it. They're like, wow, she totally helped me in the actual webinar. Now, a lot of times that's not possible because webinars are pre-recorded sometimes, but there are different channels, whether you're using like Webinar Ninja or Webinar Jam, a lot of different ones now have where you can have a pre-recorded webinar and you can have live comments. So if you are asking, in the recorded webinar, hey, how can I help you? Just mention, the question in the comment. I'll be answering in the comments so that we can take care of this while the webinar is going. That technically can satisfy a little bit of that. But I would definitely switch up the format from being super engaged of myself, kind of a webinar like, here's my stuff, buy my stuff, right? To where can I help you today? And that helps people trust you. It helps people understand how you teach. If if they want to take more classes from you because they get where you're coming from, and then they walk away with something, and that's the one thing that I think a lot of people need to do in a webinar is they need to give people something to walk away with, so that even if they have to sit with it, right? If they don't buy your product at the end, even if they have to sit with it, they know, hey, I could really implement that. She really helped me. Instead of I didn't learn anything because I've done so many webinars where I should say I've listened and watched to so many webinars where I'm like, I know that, I know that, I know that they're not teaching me anything new, right? They said they were going to teach me something new. And so I'm really happy when I hear somebody in the middle of any webinar say, put your question in the comments. I'm like, they want to know, like, they want to know what I want to hear. Like, I want, what do I need more help with? And so if you can get the you out there more than the I think you're golden.
So there's another thing on your website, and this got me going. And that was the membership site, because I've seen someone do it before, and I signed up for one briefly, like a couple of months, but I didn't see enough fresh content sort of coming in after initially getting in and going, okay, I like these 5 or 6, but then I was like, okay, well, is this a once a month you refresh, or once a week, or 2 weeks? Like when am I gonna get something new? For those who may not know what that is, I mean, I guess people understand membership in terms of, Netflix or Hulu or whatever, but when we're thinking about content where your membership may be giving you access to a weekly pre-recorded webinar, or a live webinar where you get this code, or a set of courses, or templates, or what have you, can you go into some detail about what that is, and what sort of experiences or kind of options that are available for, let's say, example, an educational consultant, and creating an actual membership site?
Well, I think that there's a lot of people understand what they're buying in a subscription, right? So if a subscription to Netflix means that you're getting access to their catalog of content for the time being that they have access to it, like their licenses. If you have what's it called, a gym membership, which is not necessarily considered more of like a subscription side, they're actually providing a lifestyle, if you will. They're providing, nutrition. They're providing kind of networking. They're providing the physical fitness side of things. They're providing maybe weight loss consultation. Like, they're providing more of a lifestyle, right? So there's a little bit different aspects to subscriptions and memberships and how those are communicated. I don't necessarily get lifestyle things from Netflix. I think that I get, bills every month, right? Like a fee or whatever, but I don't get like things like I would from like a membership. I think it's a little bit different. When you subscribe, because you technically sign up, you subscribe, right, to a membership. I think that there's different aspects if you're an educational consultant that you could provide. One is coaching, right? If you're providing some sort of weekly group coaching where people could get on a call and ask the questions that they need, or be a spotlight feature that, you bring somebody up and you can actually walk somebody through a problem, and probably the rest of the people on the call have probably been there and needed that kind of coaching too. I think some of the digital aspects are digital downloads, whether that's, a monthly or weekly PDF of maybe a checklist, or things that you're developing so that it's easier for, the people you're consulting with to do their jobs. Sometimes when you are doing a membership, if it's a monthly membership, then sometimes you can offer certain discounts, right, when you sign up. So that's something that is a little bit tricky depending on what, the market's telling you at the time. But I think that when you're creating a membership, you need to have a lot of bells and whistles so that people stick around, because there is a lot of turnover in memberships. People, like you said, I wasn't really engaged with the kind of content that I was getting. I wasn't I can't even talk about it. I wasn't given enough, right? But a lot of times people feel overwhelmed if they're given too much, right? So maybe like for my membership side, I have right now there's six online courses, and people can, also have networking in a private Facebook group. They can also get monthly templates so that their design is on point for their social media. So they know that they're getting something every single month that's new. But if I had given them something every week, they might not have caught up, right? And so somebody like you might be like super on point, like I'm getting something every week and I'm looking at it every week. When I look at things like Creative Market, they spotlight different products every single week, and I have them saved in my inbox or in my like folder, because I want to go back to them because I don't have time to look at them right now. So sometimes memberships will not offer a ton because they know that people have lives, right? And that they will not necessarily be able to complete all of the modules if you were to do something every single week. I know that sometimes when people do, what is it called? Email courses. That's a new one to me that I've seen recently pop up, which is getting a daily email prompt of what you should do. A lot of them are, I've seen them on Twitter, where you sign up to somebody's email course and then literally they're just sending you a prompt every single day. And that is something that I think gets a little overwhelming because you're like, oh, I didn't even do the one from yesterday. So similar to getting something from a membership site, the benefits on the lifestyle, that is the transformation I think people focus on. So the networking aspect, the socialization, if they're having just meetups, I think meetups are really big right now. Something that, you can get on a private Slack channel. Sometimes people offer, not WhatsApp, but there's another channel similar to Slack, but where you can, or Viber, where you can do private text messaging to make sure that, if somebody has a question, there's always a support line. So if you're providing different bells and whistles, right, for your membership site, there's a lot of them that you can do, from actually providing the content to providing the support. And I think people who are going to stay in a membership, I actually just was consulting with this woman who was looking for her new tribe, she said, and I was like, don't say that word. But what she was really meaning is she had gotten all she could get out of her membership that she had been in for 2 years, and she was looking for a new group of people, like and that evolution happens. And I think that when any consultant is providing a membership for people, they have to understand the turnover side of things. Is that people will network the whole group and be done, like that was cool, and they will need a new fresh set of people to kind of help them get to the next place in their career. And I don't think that that's bad. I think people just need to be mindful that that does happen.
So in all of the work that you are doing and teaching entrepreneurs how to design courses, how to create webinars and virtual conferences and webinars, the question comes, where do you house, or where do you host these things online? And, there can be websites like Squarespace that allow you to host webinars and other things there and sell from there. And then, of course, again, I mentioned there's Kajabi and Thinkific and Teachable. When someone is doing this and they're going, okay, I'm going to design my course, what goes into play in thinking about that platform? Because I looked at Teachable at first, and again, me being an educator, I was looking at that platform at the time and I was like, well, this doesn't quite work with what I want to do, because I want to have more interaction with the students or teachers that I work with, because I want them to be able to turn in stuff so I can, quote unquote, grade and provide feedback and guidance. And not every platform is created the same. What should people look for in deciding on sort of which platform or site they should actually work with?
Well, like you said, there's a lot of them out there. On my courses, they are on Kajabi. And I actually went to Kajabi first because I interviewed the marketing, um, the like head of marketing for Kajabi for one of my conferences. So I was really impressed with what he said. So I was like, let me try out Kajabi. And a lot of times when you are debating on what platform you should use, it really comes down to what are you comfortable with? And that means the technology side of things. If it's too complicated and you're more frustrated than you feel like you should be, then it's probably not for you. A lot of other decisions come down to pricing, and how many courses you can have on any sort of tiered level of pricing. So if you plan on having a ton of courses, well, then you need to make sure that you're not maxed out on the price side if you end up with 30 courses versus just hosting one. You can always, like you said, Squarespace, you can host something on Squarespace. You can do a workshop without even having any of that. You could just do one on Zoom, so you don't necessarily have to post a course anywhere. Like I just said, you could do it by email if you really wanted to and not have that extra expense. Just maybe having some sort of email provider, like Flowdesk or constant, what is it called? Constant Contact. I'm forgetting what it's all of them. Or there's so many different email service providers that you could use to deliver your content that way, that you don't even need a host if you wanted to do it that way. If you're trying to have people turn in work and things like that, and you're not part of a school system that has Blackboard or Canvas or something like that, then you're going to want a platform that's going to help you do all those bells and whistles. I know Kajabi, you can do webinars and things through that, or you could get a different host and do it through Vimeo or Zoom, or and host all of your content there. What I would suggest is that you look at the cost, you look at what you can do with it, and do you really need it right now? Because a lot of times people will get it before they're ready, and then they're paying $199 a month for Kajabi when you don't even have a course launched, right? So if you haven't put your course together, there's no need to have an actual platform until you have all of your videos done, your graphics done, everything that you would want, your downloads, whatever it is, the homework that you're providing, any sort of instructional material. You don't need the platform until you actually do that. So my advice would be, do everyone's 7-day trial. Do every single 7-day trial to see what the difference is in what they're providing, what the dashboards look like, what the customer support is like, because it's not about, hey, can I get customer support because I'm the person that's teaching the course? It's my students, can they get the customer support, because they're the ones who might not be able to access the material, and how hard is it for them to redo their login or their password, like all of those things are really important on the student side, not just the business owner side.
Gems. Doc, it's been awesome having you on the show.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Now, before we go, I want to ask you about those educators who will hopefully they're regular listeners of this podcast, but let's just say they found it on LinkedIn, or a friend recommended them this podcast, or maybe you shared it and someone found it and they listening to it and they're thinking, wow, I've been teaching 5, 15, 20 years, and I want to make a greater impact outside of the confines of my classroom, and I want to share what I'm doing. What is your advice to that educator who is interested in monetizing their actual classroom experience and expertise?
I think that now is the perfect time to do it, because the industry is booming and there's enough room for everyone to be a part of it. And I think that if you have something to say, and are wanting to, you know, have your passion come to the forefront, then you should do it. I think a lot of times people are scared and they let, you know, some imposter syndrome come into the play, and you know, the fear gets the better of them. I think it's really important to elevate and amplify your voice, because there are so many voices who don't have the opportunity. So if you have the opportunity, I would definitely take it. And the next step is really just mapping it out. And I think just like what we were talking about before in curriculum design, and really putting the step 2 after step 1, you know, is really just taking the pen and putting it to paper. Or if you're, you know, like I did for my book, I spoke it into my phone. You know, you can use dictation methods. Whatever is your process, start the process, because it's literally about the consistency and staying active in that, in your passion, that will get you to your goal. And I think that without that consistency in getting to your goal, you will let something pass you by. And if you are an educator that has something to say, you most likely have, and you think it might be already said, I would say discount that notion, because no one is saying it like you are saying it. And I think that authenticity right now is queen or king, whoever you are. Authenticity is the #1 seller online, because if you are standing out because of your individuality, people are leaning into you because you're not cookie cutter. So if you have that, then like I said before, you're golden. You will definitely rise to the top, because I think a lot of times people are trying to copy what other people are doing instead of being themselves. So for educators trying to jump into the water of this whole industry of online course creation or webinars, workshops, like, you know, the like, I think that it is invaluable for all of us to just take a step back and just say, it can happen for every single person who wants it to happen. You just have to start.
All right, Doc. So tell the people how they can work with you.
Well, you can send me an email. That's always easiest. You can go to sandra@collegeofstyle.com. You can send an email there. You can also DM me, and I'm always on LinkedIn. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. But the best is just send me an email and we will chat.
All right, all right, all right. Y'all learned something today, people. Let's give it up to Dr. Sandra Colton Medici. Thank you again, Doc, so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Now, people, you know how I do this. This podcast episode is going to be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, Spotify, and Audible. I need you to subscribe and share amongst the folks in your network. And though I am on all major podcast platforms, I'm trying to grow on Apple Podcasts. So I need you to listen and subscribe. Don't just hit the button. I need you to listen, and then I need you to share it and leave a comment, because I'm trying to be found, and I'm also trying to get Oprah on the show. And I want her to know that we're doing big things around here. Yes, I'm trying to get her, So thanks again. We'll check out another episode. I saw a look in your eyes when I said that, and that threw me off. Yeah, so yes, I'd like to again thank my guest, Dr. Sandra Colton Medici, for coming on and dropping so many gems. And I'd like to thank you again for checking out another episode of the Dr. Will Show, the Mobile University of Entrepreneurs. As always, people, invest in you, EDU, peace.